Hello, and welcome back to Jung at HARP, conversations where on the playground where psyche and creativity meet. I'm Deborah Henson-Conant, and this is Kathleen Wiley. And today, what we're going to talk about is breakdown or breakthrough, or is it breakdown and breakthrough? We want to look at that, about dissolving and expanding. And when we do dissolve, what we expand into. So Kathleen is a Jungian psychoanalyst. I am a composer and a performer, and we both play the harp, as you may be able to see. And so we call this Jung at HARP. This is a conversation, and we have it on a platform where we hope that you will be able to take part in this conversation. We don't come here with answers. We come here with the beautiful key that unlocks our own understanding that we don't even have yet, and that is questions. And so today's question is about breakdowns and breakthroughs, and it's something that both Kathleen and I have been thinking a lot about. Shall I talk about how I've been thinking about it, Kathleen?
Sure.
So I've been thinking about it in two different ways. One is looking back to a natural metaphor, the metaphor of the caterpillar and the butterfly. And I say this rather than the moth, because the moth does this differently. But the butterfly, the caterpillar, actually creates, when it creates a chrysalis, it keeps the same DNA, but it creates a structure of itself that has a hard outside that will protect it. And inside that hard outside, it dissolves. And within that dissolve, within that solution is one thing that both the caterpillar and the butterfly share. And that is called the imaginal disc. And that imaginal disc holds all the blueprints and anything that is needed for the transformation from caterpillar to butterfly, keeps the same DNA throughout the whole thing. And what happens is the solution or the dissolution of the caterpillar becomes the nutrient that then feeds what becomes the butterfly. Mm-hmm. So it's a beautiful metaphor. I mean, it's always a beautiful metaphor. But the more I look into it and learn the specifics of it, the more it becomes fascinating to me. Even the use of the word imago, which means from what I understand, it's not like I'm an expert at this, I'm a discoverer, but it means the final animal, the final thing, the imago, the thing that it is, that this caterpillar has been carrying that in it throughout its life. And so that's one thing that I'm thinking about. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm thinking three things. I'm also thinking about my own, struggles with, or I shouldn't even use those words, but I will. My struggles with being a struggling thing, and the process of when I can let go of that, and allow myself to expand into something new, and also when I hold on to that. Then now I'm realizing there's four. In The Golden Cage, it's all about two characters who are holding on to images that are holding them hostage. And finally, in Hip Harp Academy, where I'm teaching, the people who come in, by and large, are stuck to sheet music, which is a sequential way of looking at music in which if you make a mistake, you've fallen off the music and it breaks and you kind of fall apart. So it gives you a lot of anxiety. And I'm teaching them a system which right now I'm looking at from the standpoint of grounded creative expansion. And that requires dissolving all those things down to the fundamental of what the music is, which could be just a few notes. Mm-hmm. I'll just give you a quick example of this. Like, I've been using progressions, and here's one progression that is it's called 1 6 2. So 1 6 4 2 5. That's what it's called. But how I've been teaching it is taking people away, even dissolving the musical trappings of it. And I've been saying, cats and fish don't giggle. And I'm saying that because this is a C, an A, an F, a D, and a G. But as people do it more and more, they can let go of that and just see the pattern. this, this, this. Well, it's just a single note at first. And then once you can ground in that, and there's very powerful things about it, because this is very structured. Dun, 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 dun. This is very open. And so you experience time. So, but what you can do with this, that foundation, that fundamental thing becomes, when you start extending it, first you extend it into thirds. You can start adding rhythms. You can make it bigger. It's still the same thing. Make it even bigger. Now I'm playing seventh chords. Now I'm playing ninth chords. Now I'm changing the shape of the ninth chord. And now I'm changing the rhythm. And now I'm going to alter when I get to that open chord. And then, and you notice that even when I dropped off, it kept going. And it all comes from the same thing. It's just an expansion of and this space. That's it. To me, that's grounded expansion. What is it to you?
I feel so much joy when I watch you play, because you play. I mean, you play. There's that energy of creativity and exploration and curiosity and engagement to see what happens next. Not, oh, it's got to happen this way. So it's just very joyous to watch.
I'm hearing you say that, and I'm like, oh, that I could live my whole life with that joy. And what I really love what you just said, without worrying about what comes next.
Yeah.
And in part that happens because I've created a structure of what comes next. And it's not a what comes next in a linear way. It's a what comes next in an expansion way.
Yeah. So, that's part of, I think, as we were talking about our question for today, the difference between breakdown or breakthrough. And, um, for me, I just finished up a 3-week creative retreat working on this book project that, for those of you who have these things that just seem to go on forever, I've been working on it for 5 years. Okay. This book project gave birth to my online embodiment circle. How's that? I didn't set out to start the online embodiment circle. But anyway, that's the way things work. That's the way the creative muse goes and the self moves. We may start out thinking it's about one thing, and then something else emerges that this is really where the energy is for now.
I'm sorry, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I'm thinking about caterpillars all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about a caterpillar thinking like, yeah, well, I'm just going to go, I'm just kind of sleepy. I'm just going to go into this thing, and I'm going to just build this, I can't build this thing. Like, what the heck am I now? What? How did this happen?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that is part of living creatively. But the chapter that I'm reworking now is on the process of dissolution. And, part of the difference for me between breakdown or breakthrough is it made me think about dissolution. You can dissolve into the larger self, the larger reality, the wholeness of who you are, and be transformed to where you expand in a way that you were just demonstrating with the music. Mm-hmm. Or we can dissolve into our old patterns, our unintegrated affects of despair and distrust and self-denigration. And that's the kind of dissolution where we just drown. I mean,
Yeah.
we drown. And what happens, I think, in the dissolution into the creative self-expression is that there is a dissolving. I'm thinking about when you mix a powder and water and it all dissolves, it becomes something different. And I think that through play, and what leads to breakthrough is that dissolution into the larger self. And I think the place where ego can be helpful to with that, or can be an obstacle to that, is what is our intention? You know, our intention focuses our consciousness, and our intention will channel energies in a certain direction. And if my intention, as I write about the embodiment processes, is to convey the transformative power of life experiences where this shows up, then that's what becomes most important, not necessarily the form of how I do it. So then when the idea for the embodiment circle came up, it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
People need a place to be in community to understand these things, talk about these things, and have support for undergoing them, because it's not easy. You know, if people could easily dissolve and expand, more people would be doing it. But there's a resistance to the breaking down that's required. So then we end up getting stuck and caught in the old loops, the too limiting ideas, the calcified ways of moving that will drown us, you know, that will keep us in the darkness.
You know, it's funny that as you're saying all these things, so many things are coming into my mind. You're reminding me of all the ancient stories, because I experience it not as drowning, but as being stuck, completely stuck in another way. And I'm thinking about all the images of getting, turned to salt, or, the Arabian Nights. There's a story that I really love, but I won't tell it right now, in which all these people are turned to stone, and it is not until one person is able to do something that this shifts. But I'm also it's interesting to me because I created a class a new class called the Musician's Chrysalis, and it is it's something that I made for the members of Hip Harp Academy. And you and I have something very similar in that we have communities in which it is safe for people to dissolve those old ideas, and in which they can see other people doing it safely, other people not having to prove themselves, creating an environment in which it is safe. And I put together all the things that weren't the musical training, but all the things that support the musical training. This is why I called it the Musician's Chrysalis. And I think it's not just the Musician's Chrysalis, it's like the Artist's Chrysalis. But you and I have talked about this for a long time, and I want to put one other context in here that I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is this idea that there are natural processes that happen. And I think of them as healing, recovering, growing, and creativity. In the sense that, hello, I see people moving, talking to us in the chat, which is really lovely. Thank you. It's great to know that you're here. Hi, everyone. So these 5 things, and I'm sure there are more of them, but I remember I was writing a piece about Oliver Wendell Holmes, a doctor, and one of the things that he was quoting was, I dressed his wounds, but God healed them. Meaning, I can do what I do as a doctor, but the healing process is a natural process. I don't heal someone. And, if I get a seed, I can put it in the ground and I can water it, but I cannot grow it. I can't do anything. I can just sit there and watch it grow. Same thing with creativity. I have it that my belief, or what I experienced about myself and what I see with people in the academy, is that if I can break down all the superfluous stuff, if I can take, for example, a Mozartian, there's a gazillion notes the way Mozart did it, break it down to the fundamental, how this moves and what's the shape of the melody, or let the melody out, whatever, then it can become simple. And if I don't take the whole thing, but just take a little, in other words, like cats and dogs don't giggle. That's an example. If I can give that becomes a creative seed. Right. And then it will naturally grow. And I find but it will not naturally grow if you play it and listen to it and say, well, this isn't very interesting. Or like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Or like, because it only grows through a practice.
Mm-hmm.
A practice of playing it, loving what it is, loving every mistake you make. The loving just opens you up. I mean, you can do without loving, whatever, I guess.
No, you can't.
All right. I mean, I don't remember loving as a kid, but I do remember just following creativity and watching it happens either through discovery or through accident. But it doesn't happen if I stop it. It happens naturally. I could put a rock in my garden on every seed, and I could thwart the seed from growing. And that's kind of what a lot of us have done to our creativity.
Yeah, and the reason I say that we do need to love is that because for me, my working definition of love is compassionate presence.
Mm,
And I also think of love as that then we have an ardor. We want something. We want to move towards it. We have a desire to get to know it, to be in its presence, to explore with it, to be in communion with it. And I do think we have to be willing to be in communion with our creativity and that aspect of ourself that we are coming to know through our creative self-expression. And it's not always easy, so I do think we have to have a passion for it.
yeah, and Monica just said this, and I think you and I both gravitated towards creating communities. And I know in Hip Harp Academy, part of what happens is people seeing other people um, do this safely, with
Yes.
humor, with
Yeah.
courage, and or even without feeling courage, but they do it anyway. That gives the community as a whole, I don't know, creativity. Monica's saying for dissolving safely
Yeah.
without breakdown, you need a container. And you've talked about this so many times, Kathleen.
Yeah.
A container, a community, a purpose,
Yes.
a spiritual or related home.
Yeah.
And I just want to
Yeah.
say that in the program I was in a few years ago, they had this idea that breakdown leads to breakthrough. And I love, Monica, how you brought this up, because right before the conversation, Kathleen and I were talking about two different kinds of breakdown. One that actually like breaks you, and the other one that breaks down your resistance to the expanded self.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, um, I want to just say something about purpose for a minute, because for me, purpose ties in with intention. And one of the first things I invite people to do in the embodiment circle, as soon as they've registered, is to set a sacred intention for what it is they want to have happen through the embodiment practices. And for me, the sacred intention, it's like a goal, but it isn't a goal in the sense that you're going to work, you're going to make it happen. You know, we think about goals as, okay, if this is the goal, then you do step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Right.
Whereas an intention to me is more of a container
Mhm.
that allows room for the mystery to move with us. It's like the ego is acknowledging, yes, this is the direction I want to go. This is where I'm going to put my focus. This is what I'm desiring to grow. I want to fertilize this, weed
Mm,
around this, water this. But it also recognizes what you were saying earlier, which is that we can't grow it. And I think our spiritual or relational home has to do with our own belief systems about nature, our nature, and the cycles of growth within our own psyche, soul, and how that is is a reflection of the greater spiritual principles, hermetic principles of how nature works. So I think we do need that basis. We need a home base. We need a home base. And sometimes in the process of becoming more whole, the home base totally breaks down. And I think this is what often happens with people. I'm imagining classical musicians who end up being improvisational artists.
mhm.
Is, you know, the relational home that worked at one point in time starts to be stifling and killing. And so that has to totally break down for a new to move into a new home. And I think this is part of what we resist. We sometimes the ego doesn't want to go through the pain and the loss of making changes. And I was having this thought when I was at the Y swimming this morning. I got up and went swimming early, and I learned to swim as an adult. Okay, so I did not grow up swimming, and so after I bought my house here on the lake about 20 years ago, I signed up for swim lessons, one-on-one swim lessons. So I'm still kind of slow. I actually have really good form because that was something I cultivated, but I'm not a fast swimmer, and inevitably, I'm in the I'm in the lane, and people are zooming by me, and I just have to always, if I start to feel a little less than, I just have to say, okay, I can dissolve into that, or I can say, you know what, I'm doing it, I'm here, I'm swimming. I was courageous enough to do this as an adult woman to learn, and and that shifts things for me. And then I call on this dream image I had when I was learning to swim. This is the power of the cell. And I'm sharing this because this is what I want to dissolve into. In the dream, um, someone was telling me about a master swimmer class they had gone to. And I had not gone because I didn't think I was good enough. And this person who was telling me about the master swimmer class was telling me what they did. And in the dream, I thought, oh, I can do all that. And I realized that when I got in the pool, instead of, thinking about my fear, drowning, blah, 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 I needed to invoke the master swimmer in me. That was the image I wanted to dissolve into. And 2 or 3 years ago, I had a dream about playing the harp because, again, I'm an adult learner at the harp. And it's really easy for me to not feel as good those of you who watch us regularly and join us regularly know my husband's a professional folk musician. So there's learn to play the harp when you're living with a professional folk musician. I mean, that's his own thing.
And you often play with him, so it's not.
And I often play with him. And I say finally because it really was a gift of grace, and it shifted how I feel when I sit at the harp. I had a dream where I was sitting on stage playing beautifully. It was like I was this accomplished, confident, expressive, effective harpist. I'm going to say effective. It's not that I was this grand master necessarily, but I was an effective musician in that I was communicating what I was feeling that I wanted to communicate to the audience, and they were getting it. And it was just now when I sit at the harp and I start to think, oh, I can't do this, I'm not as good as, I invoke that image. That's what I want to dissolve into. So anyway.
Wow. So much that you said. So many times I want to be like, but I hear where you're going. So I'm going to start at the end. I mean, I think this is one of the things that I see over and over again in myself and in others, that being an effective musician, and I think this is effective. Because it's a shape, and I feel that from that, I could sing a song with just that little thing. Mm-hmm. Or I could dance while I'm playing, and I could do anything. And if I do it wrong, it's still there for me to come back and do it right. So I'm see, and boy, do I wish I could see that in other parts of my life. I see that I allow myself to bring every part of myself as a human being into doing something simple, and I encourage the people in the academy to do that, because that's what I love to see. Do I want to see on stage somebody blah, 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 blah. Okay, I get it, you can do that. I mean, what is that saying to me? But for me, the instrument as an extension of the human expression, anything that I do as an extension of the human expression, and I will get caught up, like social media is my big bugaboo. I will get caught up in, oh, I have to do this and I have to do this. And so as soon as I can do one thing, I will think it's not enough. Mm-hmm. Go on and try to get more complicated, because my brain says that's what's better. Whereas if I could, I mean, I will now, especially after this conversation, say, Deborah, if you can be creative with that thing, whether it's expanded and extended or not, surely you can be creative with anything.
Right.
And can you, but will I be willing to allow the thing that I'm being creative with simple enough where I feel I'm being exposed? I feel that someone's going to come along and be like, well, that's just a chord progression. Like, what? That's nothing. So that's one of the things is and that's a perfect example. That kind of thought process is a perfect example of me reinforcing the old who I am.
That's right.
And one of the things that I love about this sort of image that you said is that I love how you said intention. And I think I'll take that into the academy, in that it is not a specific thing, but it is a way of being, I think.
Yes.
That you're offering to them. And this is, I think, what my coach has been saying to me about goals. She's like, the goal, stop. Don't try to achieve the goal. The goal is there for you to go stand in and experience what it feels like to be there. That's your job. Go experience what it feels like to be there. And so I guess, that's like the garden. I'm imagining with I'm imagining picking a flower and putting it on a vase in my house. Like and right now it's a packet of seeds.
Yeah.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
I want to see. All right. So I'm going to pull this up. Oh, wait, no, there's one more thing I wanted to say that I loved about, so much. I wrote down the loss of change, the experience of the loss of change. I wrote down the Chambered Nautilus because it's one of my favorite poems, again, by Oliver Holmes. And I know about Oliver Wendell Holmes because I wrote a play about him years and years and years ago, which is the only reason I know everything about him, or some things about him. But the Chambered Nautilus is an animal that outgrows its home, and each new season it has a higher vaulted home, and home gets larger and larger until at end, the poem says at end it's made free by life's unending sea. I'm sure I'm not paraphrasing it correctly, but when you were talking about swimming, I was thinking about flying, and I was thinking out how for me playing music is like flying. It feels like flying. And so it was interesting to me that you were gravitating towards this thing of swimming that feels like flying.
Yeah. Well, there's a freedom and there's a being held in a substance. In the flying, it's in the air. In the water, it's the waters. But it is that being held, contained in something other than. So
yeah, and it's also that it has all those other experiences of flight, which is glide, soar, and if you're riding a wave, you have the feeling of soaring. So it has all those same elements. It's just that we're too heavy to do it in the air, but we can do it on the ground. I mean, in the water. Sorry. I'm in like doing it wrong mode. Okay. All right. Well, let go of that.
Good.
Bonnie says, so it is not how much you know, it's how you, and I know you're saying present yourself, and I'm going to say it's
be present.
You are present with yourself, with what you know. Exactly. And as a musician, and this is, I've seen this happen in the academy, and it's really interesting because I posted a blog post recently about Cherie Maffey, who is a student in the academy and has been so for several years. And she is someone who snuck under the radar. I normally don't, I say it's for fledgling to advanced, people who can play the harp. I did not know that she came in without playing the harp at all. She had never played the harp before and came into the academy. But what I'm seeing as the advantage is that she's not having to unlearn things. And what she created recently, she went through the Baroque Flamenco Challenge, which was a 5-day challenge, and people learned a bunch of stuff. One of the things they learned was 2 chords. And she was like, hey, these chords sound like they're kind of brooding. And it's Memorial Day in New Zealand. And they're this story I've always wanted to tell. And within a couple of hours, she took this thing she had just learned and she put it together. She allowed herself to be creative with it. And she put it together into a video that she was able to share with her community about the meaning, a story meaning of that particular day. And Monica is another person. Monica, who's here, is another person who allowed herself to simplify to 2 chords. There was one point in her learning where I remember she came in one day and she was like, something like this: I've had it with all this, like all this stuff. I'm going to these 2 chords. I like these 2 chords. These 2 chords are my 2 chords. And so she just started there and grounded. And I think that's part of that's this presence.
Yeah.
When you connect with that presence, you always have it to come back to. But the thing about transformation is you can sequester in it if you're worried about doing it wrong. But if you have it as something that can expand, if you know that it's a grounded thing that allows you to expand, whatever that simple thing is, becomes the place. And I want to show one other thing, because you can do it I showed you this can expand, but you can also have it through time expanding. So when people learned Baroque flamenco, they had a safe place that alternated with a and what it is it's a melody that's known, a place you can come back to, and then it's another shape that you're improvising on. And when I first started, it was the first thing I improvised on the harp. And I had to, because I was in a situation where I had to make the music I had much larger. And I remember at the time I was like, whoa, this is like a home free. And then I can explore. And when I can keep doing it, or if I get lost, I get to come back here. So that's a case in which we ground and expand in something that is temporal versus, expanding in a different way. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. And I'm still circling back to Connie's comment about being present. Because when we are really wholeheartedly, whole-bodily present, then how we present what we know is very different. When we present what we know from uptight, rigid, this has got to be the way it comes out. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with the first one. They're just different. And to be able to play, and the psychoanalyst Winnicott talked a lot about the importance of play. He was a pediatrician before he became a psychoanalyst. And so he, having that background with children and doing a lot of work with children, saw the importance of play. But as adults, to be able to play, so when I can get in the pool and play with what it's like to be in the water and how it feels to move my arms a certain way, and what it's like if I kick deeper than if I kick shallow, if I can have a playful attitude, an attitude of curiosity, exploration, and discovery, and in play, it isn't about right or wrong. It really is about exploring what can I do with what I have? And I think that's the beauty of what you're teaching in HARP Academy, is you're really teaching.
What? Wait a minute. What happened? Can you guys hear? Kathleen? Did you guys just lose Kathleen? Like, is it me or is it her? Somebody who's watching. Can you still hear me? I'm going to keep talking just in case you can still hear me. So what I was thinking while Kathleen was talking and before she froze on my end, or I froze, one or the other. Children do that with blocks. Okay. And so, maybe I'm not hearing. Are you hearing me? You can hear. Okay. All right. So I'll take this on for a minute until Kathleen comes back. I was realizing as Kathleen was talking, I was thinking, it's not that sheet music is bad. It's just that it is so much harder for most people. It is so complex and it is so sort of realized by the composer that it is hard for people to know how to play with it. And people also have a prohibition that it's not okay to play with it. And people have a prohibition. I'm so sorry we lost Kathleen. Hopefully she will be back. And most people have a prohibition to playing just part of the sheet music. There she is. Yes, I'll bring her in. Okay. Okay, here we go. Welcome
Hi
back.
there.
Okay, yeah, welcome back. So I was jumping on what you were saying about yeah, and what I was realizing as you were speaking was that there's nothing wrong with written sheet music, and there is nothing wrong with playing it, and more, but it's more complex, and so it's a much longer. It takes a lot longer to be able to play with it. And there, partly just from technical reasons, takes you much longer to be able to be present and grounded and expressive with Mozart when you have to hit the right notes than to learn to be expressive and expand this. It just takes longer. And I'm working with people who are, they want to express themselves, so it doesn't matter. And people have a prohibition against messing with Mozart, taking it apart and playing it differently. And they also have a prohibition of just taking part of a piece and playing with it. And yet this is what you would have to do in order to be able to be present with sheet music in the way that I can help people be present with something that's already partly broken down. And I think one of the things people are always saying to me, oh, you're a composer, and yet you encourage us to play with your pieces. And I do, because I know how they were built and what they were built on. So I can give you the sheet music and say, play it this way. Or I can say, this was a beautiful melody, and I put this bass to it. Take the melody, put a different bass, or simplify the bass or something. Anyway, the whole idea of playing with. And if we constantly keep trying to make ourselves better, it's hard. And I want to say one more thing about that, because for me, your swimming, the joy that you have reminds me of my running.
Yeah.
Not a competitive runner. People are running by me all the time. I don't even notice. But there's a whole different reason I'm running. I'm not there to be competitive or to be good or to look good or anything like that. I'm engaging with the world in my way through running.
Yeah. It makes me think about what Angeles Arian used to say about when you compare or compete, you cut yourself in half. And I think that's so true in all the areas that, and I just had an interesting opportunity to keep playing. So I kept playing as if I were talking, and I could see comments coming up, and it said, oops, connection lost, reconnecting. And I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? So I kept talking about
what did you say? What were you talking about?
I don't even remember now, because I was playing.
Okay.
Oh, I think I was responding when Connie said children do that with blocks. Is that,
right.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, you've got these blocks, and how do you put them together? And then you knock them down and you put something else together. And I think that's so much what you encourage in HARP Academy when you give snippets or progressions, is play with it. And then, put something together, then, knock that down and put something else together. And I think the same thing is, if we can adopt that attitude in our life towards what our own emotional nature and our feedback loops and our urges is, okay, so our anger comes up and we act a certain way, and maybe that doesn't get us what we want. So then we begin to play with, okay, well, what else might I do with that anger? What might that energy actually help me accomplish that I want, versus over here making trouble where I don't want? Because all of our affects, all of our body sensations are psychic energy. They're just energy. They happen to come up in a certain form, but it doesn't mean that's the form that they have to stay in, because the energy is the seed essence. Yeah.
Right. We're right back to the beginning question, which I really love, which is this breakdown to breakthrough, or wherever it is. And one of the things that I just as you were speaking, I was thinking about building blocks, like you were bringing up, and realizing that when you have building blocks like dun, 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 and you will have heard Mozart do this, you will have heard, this is not something I made up. This is a progression that's out there. And when you have that building block, you can apply what you can already do to it.
Yes.
Now that may be something with music. You may be able to go, or you may go, or I mean, we don't know what it is, but I think that's what's so beautiful to me is what is the creative thing that you can do with that without feeling like you have to be better to do it.
Right. Or you have to be like someone else.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing that will thwart our own movement toward wholeness and self-expression and creative self-expression than feeling as if we have to do it like someone else does it.
Right.
And if we don't, then what we have to offer isn't valid or valuable. And because I know we're going to have to stop here in a minute. And the other reality is we have to all be able to hold on to ourselves and not dissolve into that self-doubt, because those kinds of self-doubts, I mean, I had a week and a half into my 3-week creative retreat. I was writing about the process of putrefaction, where things die and decay and rot. Yes. And I kind of got caught in my own despair about what I was doing. And I thought, this is just part of the journey, and then in a day or two, I was through that. And it was like, okay, yes, I get this. And what it actually destroyed was this idea that I had to write for somebody else.
Right. Oh, right.
And that's what died. And then what grew from that is I'm writing for me. I'm writing for the me at this age and this age and this age that needed this information and this direction and this support and these exercises to work and build muscles. And so even in the death, that the breakdown, there was a breakthrough that came from it.
I just heard so much of what you said. And I know we only have like 1 minute. Okay, I'm just going to pull up what Connie said, and then I'm going to say what came to me while you were speaking. So Connie's saying, I find especially when I'm studying painting, the more I tried to be perfect, the longer it took to learn technique.
Right. Yeah.
So thank you, Connie. And this is one of the things I love about these conversations. What I wrote down for myself, and then I got so much more in what you were saying, Kathleen, because anyway, what I wrote down is we have to discover ourselves through the practice, through the simple thing. We are either going to try to push ourselves into something, or we are going to discover ourselves. And as you were talking about, I did this for myself. I was thinking about the Academy, and I was thinking that I get to see people be creative in ways that you never get to see out in the world. And to me, it is the thing I want to see. It is the thing I want to talk about. And so in a sense, I built the Academy for me to explore music and not how to play right. Yeah. And so what you're giving me, what I got out of this conversation to take forward, is to find a simple structure, a simple set of blocks for me this week that I can set up as a transformational practice that I can do over and over again, simply as a structure to discover myself.
Yes.
That's what I'm freaking on.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to try it. This makes me so scared, but I'm going to try it in the field of social media. So go ahead and watch me this week, and I'm just going to put it out there.
That's terrific. That's terrific. And I'm going to hold the intention of continuing to dissolve into that self-expression that speaks to me, and to stay out of the dissolution into comparing and competing.
Okay, great. I'm going to take that on and put it onto my practice. So I love it. Thank you so much, Kathleen. It's wonderful to be back. It's so great to be connected with all of you. We will be back here next Friday, and you can go to jung@harp.com and you can subscribe to the podcast. We are now starting to put forth on podcasts. You can get them at your whatever your favorite podcast place is, including old episodes. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, great. And we'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Kathleen, thanks so much. Wait.